Later in the show, we're going to be hearing from Mark Bird, who's the Irish handicapper on the latest two-year-old ratings. But his BHA counterpart is Graeme Smith, who's going to join us live now to talk about the juvenile ratings and what it means and what it might suggest for the season ahead. Graeme, thanks for joining us. How are things?
Evening, Alex. Yeah, good form, thanks. Things are going really well.
How are you feeling generally in terms of excitement levels about what you saw, what we witnessed, what we enjoyed among the juvenile crop from last year?
Yeah, I've got to say, in terms of the overall crop, we rate horses in the classification that are rated 110 and above. I think we only had 36 this year, and that's the lowest we've seen for a long, long time. So in terms of strength in depth, it's perhaps not there. However, at the very top end of it, we have City of Troy rated 125. He was £5 clear of the rest of the class. Also, that puts him the third highest rated two-year-old since Frankel and Dreamer Head shared top honours in 2010. They were 126. In the meantime, we've had Pinatubo rated 128. He's the modern benchmark. I think Two Darn Hot was 126. City of Troy 125. He's an outstanding two-year-old. What's more, he's done it on only 3 runs. 2 of them wide margin victories. There is 2 pattern successes, and it's really exciting to see what he can do because the smart money says he's going to go upwards rather than anything else.
Yes, we're just touching the sides might not be the right phrase, but we are just maybe getting started with him. It's interesting, the illustrious company and names that you mentioned of the past that he's already kind of banging heads or at least rubbing shoulders with, and it's the promise of oh so much more with him, isn't it, for the season ahead?
Yeah, it has been. I mean, 3 runs. When you just to put a little bit more flesh on the bones, Aidan O'Brien's had umpteen champion two-year-olds. City of Troy is the second best two-year-old he's ever had. The only one who topped that was Johannesburg back in, I think that was 02 at 126. He was just a pound ahead. I think he ran 7 times. He won 4 Group 1s. And I often say two-year-old ratings are as much about opportunity as they are actual ability. He had 7 goes to show us exactly how good he was, particularly in top company. City of Troy, he's running a maiden, he's running a Group 2 and just 1 Group 1 effort, and he's already hit 125. That's super exciting. And the 125 came from a Dewhurst where he didn't really set a strong enough gallop to really assert his superiority. He was the only horse that covered the last furlong there, faster than his overall race speed. It all points to 125 being probably on the conservative side for where he could be. I can see why they're getting really excited over at Ballydoyle, and this is a huge, huge one to light up the year ahead.
I must admit, I fell for him right away at the car. I just loved his professionalism, the fact he ran through the line. It was, if not effortless, then sort of athletic and easy for him. And he's done nothing but get better since and enhance all of those attributes. Martin Dwyer and I were talking about his pedigree and wondering about the season ahead for him, because his dam's related to an Oaks winner. There is a bit of middle distance influence sort of further down the pedigree. How do you view him in terms of how far he might stay, at what kind of distances he might be best?
Yeah, I don't even think it is a bold call. I'll eat my hat if he doesn't improve for distances beyond 7 and even a mile. The dam won the Fillies Mile. She's sister or half-sister to an Oaks winner. There's other Group 1 performers in the pedigree. His sire, Justify, now we all know how far he stayed. He won the American Triple Crown. Interestingly, so yes, I do think City of Troy is going to stay pretty well. I wouldn't have any problems fancying him for the Derby trip if he's still on this track when we get to June. Just a brief footnote on Justify. He's had one hell of a season in this is just his second two-year-old crop. He sired City of Troy, the outstanding two-year-old champion. He also sired Opera Singer, who is the champion two-year-old filly. He sired the best two-year-old in France in Ramituelle, who was second in the Prix Mornay, and he won 2 of the Breeders' Cup juvenile races, courtesy of the 2 fillies events. You can see why Coolmore have gone from $100,000 to private for his stud fee. I mean, the garden's incredibly rosy, and it wouldn't surprise me if we saw a lot more of Aidan O'Brien's this season that are by Justify.
He's already whetted the appetite, Aidan O'Brien, about the possibility that this horse, towards the end of next season, might even appear on dirt. That itself is really fantastic and it's adventurous. And I get the sense that he might be campaigned with that kind of adventure in mind. And goodness me, it could be exciting with them. Let's talk about some of the other horses, because different kind of mould entirely when we discuss Vanique, who is high up in the rankings. He bagged a couple of sprinting Group 1s last season out in France, and then of course in the Middle Park. What did you make of the progress and the attributes that he had last season?
Yeah, not just the best juvenile trained in Great Britain, but he actually produced the best 2 performances by British trained juveniles last year. He's 4 wins from 4 within a month of a winning debut. He added the Group 1 Prix Mornay, where he ran down the best 2-year-old in France, Ramituel. I would argue that he didn't face the same strength in depth in this field in the Middle Park that we're watching right now. But right about now, when James Doyle goes for him, he kills this race in an absolute instant. You see in the Tabor colours, the green and orange, sorry, the blue and orange. That's the Coventry winner, River Tiber, who was 3rd in the Mornay. He beats him a little bit further here as well. So this saw Vanique raising the bar from 118 to 119. They are going to go down the sprinting route with him, seemingly, rather than try and stretch him out for the Guineas, and that does make sense. The one footnote I would add to Vanique is I think he'd have had a little bit more to do in that Middle Park had Bucanero Fuerte turned up. He'd won the Phoenix Stakes by 4 lengths from a strong field as well. Instead of coming to the Middle Park, he had gone over 7 furlongs instead for the National Stakes, which didn't work out very well for him, and that was the end of his season. Where they are currently is my view as well. We've got Vanique 119, we've got Bucanero Fuerte on 120 from the Phoenix Stakes. So, I mean, that's setting the stage for a fantastic clash, hopefully in the Commonwealth Cup, because I think Vanique's going to be going there. Let's hope Bucanero Fuerte does too.
Not always easy for the 3-year-old sprinters, is it? But the Commonwealth Cup at least affords them an opportunity at the Royal Meeting against their own age group. Let's touch about another 3-year-old colt who potentially could emerge as the leading opponent, stroke biggest contender against City of Troy in the Guineas, and that is Rosalion, who only tasted defeat once last season. That was on soft ground, whether it was coincidental or not, when we saw him at Doncaster, but he bounced back in no uncertain terms, as we see from this photograph, where he came from off the pace, perhaps not getting the run of the race, and still winning comprehensively in the Jean-Luc Lagardère.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Alex. I don't know why you need me for this interview, but yeah, I think he is the leading British trained contender for the Guineas. He's 117 currently. With my old Time Farm hat on, that would be 117p as well. If there's one near the top of the list, apart from City of Troy, we haven't seen the best of, I think it's Rosalion. He announced himself when winning what was probably the strongest listed race of the entire 2-year-old season in the Pat Edry Stakes at Ascot in July. 4 lengths, he smashed them by, and the next 5 in that field all went on to win at listed or group level later in the year. They included the Group 1 Futurity winner, Ancient Wisdom, the Group 1 winner from Saint-Cloud, Sunway, the Dewhurst runner-up, Al-Yanabi. I don't know why he blew out at Doncaster. I'm really surprised that he didn't win that race, even though it was a fairly strong one. But he put the record straight in the Lagardère. You're quite right. There was a bias, given the pace that they finished, to race close to the pace. He didn't. He gave a head start to Unquestionable and still cut him down to win by a cosy length. If the form needed a boost, Unquestionable went straight from there to the States and he won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. There's lots of strength behind the 117 performance from Rosalion, and whereas Vanique is probably going sprinting, Rosalion's got Guineas written all over him, and he probably is the most exciting one in opposition to City of Troy on current evidence.
Yeah, he should relish a step up in distance from 7 to 8 furlongs as well. Really looking forward to seeing how good he turns out to be, how much competition he can provide against City of Troy, at least in the early part of the season. Let's touch on the fillies, and particularly one from this side of the Irish Sea or the Channel, and that is Fallen Angel, who got better and better. She started to take big jumps forward, didn't she? From Newmarket, then going across to Ireland from the Moy-Glare. How impressed with her were you? How good do you think she could be this season?
Oh, she's a good filly, all right. She's really exciting, Fallen Angel. She is the second best juvenile filly in Europe, £2 off Opera Singer. She is by far and away the best juvenile filly from last season, trained in Great Britain, and she went from strength to strength. We're seeing her here win the Moyglare, but if we just rewind a little bit from that, her only defeat, she was beaten half a length by Shuwari, who went on to be second in the Fillies Mile. Fallen Angel was a significantly better filly after that, though. 3 lengths she won the Sweet Solera by, and here in the Moyglare, that was her flagship performance. On the clock, the time compared really well with what Henry Longfellow did in the National Stakes over the same course and distance that afternoon. She came out just £2 behind him. He's rated 119. Vespertilio, the runner-up, she'd won impressively in the debutant. She's a filly with a good turn of foot. And back in third, 4.5 lengths behind them, was the Cheveley Park winner, Porta Fortuna. So there's loads of depth in that race. The striking thing about Fallen Angel is she couldn't match Vespertilio's turn of foot initially, but God, she's strong at the end of 7 furlongs. Everything about every one of her races tells me that she'd be an even better filly at a mile. Too Darn Hot, the sire, won at a mile. Agnes Stewart, the dam, she was second to City of Troy's dam, actually, in the Fillies Mile quite a few years ago. Everything about Fallen Angel tells me that she's going to want a mile, and I can't bet in my position, but you know, there's a bit of interest for her in my book for the 1,000 guineas. I think she might be a little bit of value against Opera Singer.
Yeah, I think she's a big player. She's actually got 2 1/2-milers in her pedigree. I'm not saying she's going to turn out to be a middle distance project, but like Graeme, I think she will gobble up that extra furlong. Vespertilio could be dangerous to a few of them next season with that explosive turn of foot. We just want to talk about a couple of horses that may or may not be on or off radar. One is a stablemate of Fallen Angels, and that is a horse who, around Christmas time, gagged up in a Southwell novice or maiden by nearly 10 lengths, and that's a horse called Night Raider. What can you tell us about this one?
Yeah, anyone watching Southwell that afternoon will be aware of what Night Raider did. It was a striking debut, but I suspect there's a lot of people missed Southwell in early December, so I'm going to flag him up. He's won his only start so far. Interestingly, the Carl Burke stable, they've had, I think it was 4 individual pattern winners from their crop of juveniles last year. And I'd say Night Raider's got a rate pretty highly amongst them for the season ahead. The race he won was ordinary. The time was always going to be ordinary because it was run inefficiently. But the impressive thing is just how quickly and how effortlessly he put 9 lengths between himself and the rest of the field. And that's without turning a hair. He was never under serious pressure. Slight concern if you're thinking guineas, and he may be up to it, you know, we'll have to see. Maybe he'll be on trial for the guineas in the spring. He's by Dark Angel, and he's a half-brother to a Palace House winner, so there's a lot of speed in the pedigree. There was a lot of speed in the performance as well, so I'm not 100% convinced he's going to want a mile. We will see, but I'm pretty sure he's very good, whatever his trip proves to be. And another one I'd flag up in the fillies division, Devoted Queen. She's one of Charlie Appleby's. He had only 1 juvenile last season rated 110 or above, and that was the Futurity winner, Ancient Wisdom. But there's got to be a lot more talent in the stable other than that, and I think Devoted Queen's a potential pattern winner. She's a half-sister to One Ruler, who was second in the Futurity, the Group 1 Futurity, a few years back. She won pretty easily over 7 furlongs at Newmarket in October. Again, they didn't go an end-to-end gallop, so it was really impressive the way she strung the field out. She did it without coming under maximum pressure, went through the line with a lot of running still left in her. Everything about her pedigree suggests that she's going to be a better filly at a mile as well, and just keep your eye out for her in pattern races coming up.
Yes, you're very welcome back here to Dundalk. Delighted to say I've been joined by Mark Bird, of course, handicapper with the IRHB. And in the week where we've seen the European 2-year-old rankings revealed, Mark is going to have a little chat about what's ahead of us for the upcoming season. Last year, Mark, some really good performance juvenile ranks. Thanks for coming on and have a chat with us. City of Troy, of course, standout.
Yeah, he was, I suppose, unsurprisingly the top rated, rated 125, which you know, very high figure really. I think it's Aiden's 13th champion 2-year-old, and he's the second highest rated of that 13, which is fair praise. You know, I mean, that puts him on the level of Fazliev, just behind Johannesburg. So he's a 3 runs, 3 wins. done everything he's been asked to do, and so in a sport where we're always looking at potential. I mean, I think he's probably the horse in the world, probably has got the most potential going into this season. Like, so we're all looking forward to him, really.
Very much so. Now, often at this time of the year, there's talk of future targets. Everything's been mentioned, from the Guineas through to the Derby, through to the Breeders' Cup, of course. The Guineas obviously looks an ideal setup on the back of the Dewhurst to win. Showed a great ability to handle Newmarket a mile. Should be fine. Where do you stand with him as a Derby prospect at present?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, he's by Justify, obviously. It was a dirt horse, and then the Dam won the Fillies Mile Together Forever, came fourth in an Irish Oaks. So there's enough stamina on the Dam side, you would think, to get a mile and a half. I think it'd be interesting to see what way they go. I think the plan is to go to the Guineas, maybe with a view to going on to the Derby. I mean, yeah, you would think he should be fine. But I mean, Justify, I guess, did stay a mile and a half in the Belmont, so that'd give you hope as well.
And that's the thing about Ballydoyle. They tend to take a chance and run these horses in Epsom, and if it doesn't work, they can always come back.
Absolutely, yeah. That seems to be the key race for them. And I think the possibility of maybe going on dirt later in the year was mentioned as well. So sky's the limit at this stage. Look, I mean, if you don't win the Guineas, I suppose then you're back to the drawing board. But yeah, look, I think everything, all options are open to him at this stage. I mean, I don't see, he seems to, as the race, certainly in the Dewhurst, like he was on top really at the most at the finish. So you'd think he'd certainly, a little bit further, certainly in the mile, and a mile and a half, obviously not every horse gets, but I think certainly it'd be worth trying it if he wins the Guineas. I think, and as I said, the connections increasingly are looking to run these horses. So there's every prospect.
And we're still not knowing with the sire, really. We're learning with Justify as we go.
Yeah, like, it's interesting. It's the first year, I think, since 2005 that the same sire has sired the champion colt and champion filly in Opera Singer and City of Troy. So that's a fair achievement. They look to have scope, I think, generally speaking. I mean, I don't think City of Troy is massive, but he's good, medium-sized, well-built colt. But the vibe seems to be that they will train on, and so that's obviously going to be to their advantage as well.
Very much so. Sticking with the Aidan O'Brien team, of course, Henry Longfellow did win the National Stakes in good style when we didn't see City of Troy when it rained on that occasion. He is an exciting prospect going forward, of course, being by Dubawi.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a pretty flawless record really at this stage. Dubawi minding 3 runs over 7 furlongs at the Curragh, 3 impressive wins. Beat Islands in the Stream, who was a runner-up subsequently in a Group 1 in France. Beat him further in the National Stakes than he did in the Futurity. I think in a different set of circumstances he actually might have ended up top-rated, because he was due to run in the Dewhurst, and then they rerouted with the ground that day at the Curragh. But hard not to like him, really. I think he probably would have been rated a little bit higher, except there's a slight concern maybe that he'd only won 4-runner and 5-runner races, so the concern is maybe not to rate him too high just on the back of that just yet. But I think he certainly has the potential to rate probably a good bit higher as well. So again, but Aidan had 6 individual Group 1 winners this year. That's only the 3rd time that's happened. Like, so it's an embarrassment of riches, really.
Very much so. You see in shot there, Mark, Buccaneer Forte ground and tactics, I think, beat him that day. There's a big question mark about the trip. Prior to that, though, he was very good when winning the Phoenix Stakes, and really good style when ridden aggressively over 6 furlongs. Yeah,
and he got a high rating on the back of that. Like, so he's rated 120. He's the 2nd highest rated 2-year-old in Europe. On this particular day when he won the Phoenix, he beat Porta Fortuna by 4 lengths there, and she's won the Cheveley Park since that, and before that she was unbeaten, an Albany winner. So
ran a crack in the Breeders' Cup as well.
It's hard to believe that she ran that far below on the day, and he put more distance between himself and, say, Give Me the Beat Boys and some of those horses in behind as well on this particular day. So I think the tactics probably just went wrong the next day, and they were trying a new trip as well. He looks fast horse to me, and I think 6 furlongs. I mean, maybe he'll get 7, but I think certainly he's not short of pace, and again, he's one to look forward to.
He is indeed, and of course he is very tough. He's strong to line over 6 furlongs. Very good programme for these horses now. Sprinters leading in, of course, Royal Ascot Commonwealth Stakes, of course, but you've got trials racing at Naas ahead of Royal Ascot, and he can stick in the sprinting trip until then if he wants. Yeah,
because in years gone past it was almost like a consolation prize somewhat, whereas now you have horses being bought specifically for these kind of the Commonwealth Cup and so on, and there's a whole programme for them, and that's good. But I suppose with the way the stallion business has gone, there's a lot more speed around than there used to be. So I suppose it's a natural evolution maybe. But it's good to see, because not every horse stays a mile, and just because they don't stay a mile, they shouldn't maybe be criticised for that. So gives these horses opportunities.
It does indeed, of course, and they're the obvious horse. Adrian Murray, of course, had a fantastic time, and Aidan O'Brien with the top 2-2-year-olds in training. Mark, a couple of dark horses to watch, of course. Trainer Paddy Tumi, fantastic year again last year. What a strike rate. Readied up a couple of horses to win on debut. They're very impressive with the Curragh last year. And we started with Porter's Place, very impressive in winning, and she is, of course, the daughter of Make Believe.
Yeah, one run, one win, sort of in I think middle of October, with a bit of ease in the ground at the Curragh. I think you're watching it there on the monitor. Yeah, like she's from the family of Yumzane and Krakador, who are good types, and Yumzane obviously runner-up in 3 arcs. Yeah, just when you see a good horse, generally you can tell if they're able to quicken up. And if you look at the turn of foot here, like once she got out in the clear, really impressive turn of foot, I thought. And
that's what I loved. The race didn't go to plan for at all.
Yeah,
at the mid part of the race.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and still able to react to it, and that's I think what you're looking for really in 2-year-olds, generally speaking, is that they do things correctly, and that that they have the ability maybe to settle and then to maybe quicken and just do things right. I mean, they mightn't show all of their ability at 2, but like I think there's certainly a lot of potential there. I mean, and that was on the back of obviously his other filly winning Goff's Million two weeks earlier,
Yeah, indeed it was. And one look, of course, being that filly, Paddy Tumi, what a performance to win that Goff's Million on debut at the Curragh last September. I couldn't see it happening, taking on some battle-hardened rivals, but she duly won, and won very impressively.
Yeah, like we've given her sort of a notional rating of 104 for that performance, which probably is the highest figure on debut by any 2-year-old really. So like if she builds on that at all, like she'd be very impressive. Obviously, it's the richest 2-year-old race in Europe, like so it was to win that first time out is a huge achievement. But Paddy Tumi, obviously, he's in the last couple of years has been one of the emerging forces really amongst the Irish training ranks, and he's got a great strike rate, number of hot properties. He's got Deep One as well. Obviously, he was a good horse, Colt, who could again improve this year. So yeah, a lot to look forward to from that stable. And I think those 2 fillies could go on.
And it was a manner in which this filly went through the race on debut, taking on battle-hardened rivals, and of course you mentioned a couple of plays horses behind with good ratings, but she was electric, and that turn of foot late on was quite impressive.
Yeah, and you watch as much racing as I do, like you don't see that, you're watching a lot of horses, but it's very rare you see that kind of a performance over the course of a year, so it's good to see sometimes, but it'd be interesting, and she's by Glen Eagles, so it'll be interesting to see where she goes, I guess. And it's good to see other trainers, having, Aidan, obviously, it's great to have him here, and, it benefits everybody in Irish racing, but it's good to see other people coming through as well and having these kind of good class horses,
Very much so. And trip-wise, Porter's Place, Be My Make Believe, where does she fit in, do you think, in your head? Is she middle distance, or would you see her running at a mile in a trial early on?
I'd probably say she would start maybe, at a mile maybe, and with the turn of foot, you'd think should be okay at that. I mean, obviously, with the relation to Yumzane there, like you'd think maybe a bit further in time as well. But be interesting. It's an interesting mix pedigree-wise, like So I think start at a mile, see how you get on maybe, and let's go from there. But the vibes seem to be pretty good about her.
Very much so. And of course, back to the Aidan O'Brien team, we have a couple of fillies to watch. Galo, we're getting near the end of his progeny, and Illinois, of course. A Colt, very impressive, of course, when he won the Curragh last autumn.
Yeah, he's likely raced. Like he's run twice. One is maiden, despite being quite green, won very impressively, and then he went on and came third in Group 1, quite shortly after this. So that was a big step up in class, straight away after winning a maiden. Both runs sort of with plenty of ease in the ground. You would think maybe better ground, should be as effective. Relation of Dane Dream, the ARC winner. So I think he's likeable. I think there's a good bit of upside maybe with him as well. And one of the last Galileo crops, obviously, so we're, you would think there'd be good horses there still to come,
Exactly, and as you said, getting to the end of the Galileo line, it'd be interesting to see what develops post Galileo. But the future's looking pretty bright for Coolmore in the back of that. We mentioned Justified, they got Dubarwis now, a number of sires coming through, and Fastet Rock, of course. More of a longer established sire, but Ocean of Dreams, I'm quite excited by him. He was very impressive on a day where he may well have went under radar when he won a debut at Leopardstown. Yeah, that's that 2-year-old day in Leopardstown towards the back end of the season. He won this particular race by 6 lengths. Now, I know sometimes I'm almost allergic to kind of heavy ground, wide margin winners because sometimes they don't always live up to it. But I mean, it was hard not to be impressed by this. I mean, and Fastet Rocks generally do improve with a bit of age as well. So this is a very likeable performance. And physically, I think as a specimen, I remember seeing him on the day. He's a fantastic looking horse, and so he's very much, in terms of ratings, he probably wouldn't figure at the moment, but huge potential there, you would think now. Yeah, very much so. I was there on that occasion as well with you, and I was quite taken by him in the ring. He looked so big and raw, and I think to do what he did on debut on testing ground, the way he lengthened inside the final furlong, having shown greenness, that last furlong was quite taking.
Yeah, and nice to have the run under the belt as well, a bit of experience now going into the year, and he obviously probably had a good experience because he won so easily, and that's important, I think, for 2-year-olds generally, like that they have a good experience first time out, and that they're not kind of recoiling then the next day when they go to the track. So I think he'd be one of the brighter prospects, I think.
He's probably the horse I'm most excited about of the once raced horse, if you like.
Yeah, and funny, when you go looking for them, like there's actually not that many of them, like there's when you look for once race types that haven't stepped up in grade. So I think he is. I mean, there's a couple of on the same day actually. Dermot Weld had a filly. I think
Azad filly or the Ag
well, we
filly,
two on the day actually. But the Sayuni, I think that won for the Ag. I thought she kind of made up her ground very quickly that day and looked nice type maybe as well. So they'd be that day is actually, and there's an Ace day as well, I think, in September, where you get 2-year-old racing, and you can often see nice prospects on those days, like but so plenty to look forward to.
Yeah, very much so. Won't be long coming around. One thing that did come out of the week's headlines, if you like, was the lack of numbers of top-rated 2-year-olds, if you like, this year.
Yeah, that was a bit of a concern. Like, we 36 horses rated in the classification 110 or above. Like the average this century, say since 2000, has been about 48, so that's a 25% drop. Now look, there are some factors maybe at play this year. I think Godolphin maybe hadn't got their best year. There are only 2 horses, say, from the John Teddy Gosden stable, so maybe you could add on a few more, but generally speaking the trend has been a bit worrying and a bit pronounced now in the last number of years. So whether people don't have the horses anymore, or whether they have them and are not running them, maybe with a view to holding on to them as long as possible. I don't know, but there are certainly enough domestically. Like, any time a horse wins a maiden in Ireland, next morning as a handicapper you get a phone call, it's not rated because somebody in Hong Kong wants to buy it, or somebody in the Middle East wants to buy it. So like, it's a hugely competitive environment. So you just hope we continue. We're lucky to have Ballydoyle, I think, in that sense.
Very much so, and up and coming trainers like Paddy Tumi, who we mentioned, and just on that, the trade for horse is quite remarkable. We see a lot of horses run well on debut. We don't see them run again in this country.
Yeah, and so you have that sort of barren territory between, say, a horse that's maiden winner 85-ish up to listed 100. Like, there's very little in there. People struggle to hold on to them, and some of the offers are hard to resist because prize money in places like, I guess, even America, Hong Kong, wherever, like, it's very tempting. And certainly if I was an owner, you would be tempted to sell some of those horses sometimes. But look, hopefully we hold on to enough of them. But as you know yourself, I mean, racing here is still very competitive. When you go try to win a race. So
very much so on all levels, of course. From the top to the bottom.
Yeah, and we, even tonight, like, a relatively mundane middle of January fixture, like, we see a nice horse in Elegant Man, I mean, good class horse to be running this time of year, so you never know what you're going to meet in Dundalk, I think. No,
very much so. Outside of the top horse, City of Troy, producer wants to know how many classes he'll win. Which other horse are you most excited by out of the horse we spoke about? For me, I think it's that Ocean of Dreams. I just think he could be anything and is under radar somewhat. Yeah.
I mean, I'm a big fan of Henry Longfellow, I have to say. But I mean, he's kind of he's up there on the charts. But no, the BHA Ocean of Dreams, I think, is probably the once race types. He'd be bang up there. Yeah. So we're either fools seldom differ, or
we're going down together anyway. I think.
Exactly,
And City Troy. Anywhere up to a mile, you'd be very confident. 10 furlongs, mile and a half, maybe the unknown.
Yeah. I think the likelihood is, all going well, he'd get the chance probably to prove himself at it. But typically most years anyway, the Derby winners come back and trip afterwards. Like, so if you're being really ambitious, I suppose you'd like to see him, love to see him in a Breeders' Cup on dirt or something towards the end of the year, that kind of thing. But look, he's a lot to achieve now in the meantime. But sky's the limit. It's just this time of year. Obviously, it's great to be able to look ahead of those things,
For sure it is. Only 2 weeks, 2 months, of course, post Cheltenham to roll on to the flat turf season. Mark, thanks so much for joining us, whetting the appetite. Some great clashes up ahead of us in the coming flat season.